And so as I traveled the world, meeting people in these different places, I saw this constant outcry for people to be more than what society had handed to them. I saw these young men in Bangalore, India, who were told that they're supposed to have this 9 to 5 corporate job, but the only time I saw them come alive is when they were playing guitar that they learned from watching a guitarist on YouTube. I saw young girls lamenting and trying to leave their families in order to move to the States in order to have any sense of individuality.
Hey, I'm Tanya Bhattacharya, and you are listening to the Campfire Circle podcast. We are all about breaking down the boardroom table as the ultimate space of leadership, and instead replacing it with a campfire. Because that's where we share our stories. That's where we build warm community, and that is where there's always room. I'm building an impactful business in public through thought leadership, and I'm taking you behind the scenes all along the way. So if you want to stand out as you stand up for your mission, you are in the right place. Hey, and welcome back to this special summer series of the Campfire Circle podcast, where we're bringing back mini moments from past episodes that are just as relevant today. So this episode is from a longer conversation with Ché Elizaga Castro, who is a storyteller by her very nature, and in her professional career has nurtured memorable stories for brands across the globe. So in this mini moment, we dive into the power of story for change, especially the power of our personal stories and sharing the things that we have grown through to become the guides we are today. We talk about how marketing best practices might change so much. I mean, there's always a new trending reel on Instagram. There's always an update we've got to understand around Google Analytics. But put simply, storytelling is ancient. It is how we have always made sense of the world as humans. So how can you tell more of your personal stories from the trenches of your social impact work to inspire your audience towards action? Listen into a mini masterclass about brand storytelling with my dear friend, Ché.
Flash forward to my career. So now in my 20s, I am working in advertising agencies in OC with these household names and these brands. And I'm the youngest woman and the only brown person in the room, with these men who are twice my age in suits and mostly white, thinking, I have no voice, I have no say in this room. Well, an interesting thing happened at this time, Tanya, because social media started to explode. And I was a creative copywriter and account manager in one. And we started to notice that, hey, the brown and black buying power was more powerful than anyone ever expected. And so for the first time in my life, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I have a say. I can intimately connect to these people who once never had a say, but now have the spending power to do so. And so from there, my career just took off. I was constantly winning more creative campaigns from agencies much larger than us because I called myself a boots on the ground girl. Like I could really connect with the audience and what they're going through and what they desired. And so this is how I really started to have an empathetic heart for storytelling and marketing. And then flash forward, I ended up leaving the creative world because I got tired of making millions for billionaires and selling things that I didn't believe in, from cars to printers to bread, even though I did love my bread client. Shout out to you. But I didn't find purpose in it. And I was living 70 miles away from my family and I never saw them, working 12 to 14-hour days, constantly trying to beat myself in my own creative. It was just exhausting. And so like many entrepreneurs out there who have left their jobs in order to seek more family and financial freedom, I ended up going on this 6-month missions trip. And what I needed was to get away from the churning of always working, but then also to understand like my own soul and to listen to my own heart and wonder, what is my purpose on this earth? I don't believe that I'm just here to make money and die. And so as I traveled the world, meeting people in these different places, I saw this constant outcry for people to be more than what society had handed to them. I saw these young men in Bangalore, India, who were told that they're supposed to have this 9 to 5 corporate job, but the only time I saw them come alive is when they were playing guitar that they learned from watching a guitarist on YouTube. I saw young girls lamenting and trying to leave their families in order to move to the States in order to have any sense of individuality. And I think to wrap this up, the story that really sticks on my heart that drives me in my work today And Come Alive Co., our mission is to help each and every one of us come alive in our unique gifts and audacious vision. That story is that one day when I was able to get away from work and spend time with my nieces who I missed them growing up, I was coloring on the floor of my parents' house, coloring this picture of Cinderella with my 4-year-old gorgeous Portuguese and Filipina niece. And she was looking throughout the colored pencils to pick the blue for her dress, Cinderella's dress, and the yellow for Cinderella's hair, I said, Ren, why don't you pick the brown for her eyes and the black for her hair, just like you? And Tanya, in that moment, my perfect, intelligible 4-year-old, beautiful niece doesn't skip a beat. She doesn't pause. She simply says, princesses don't look like me. Mm-hmm. And that story continues to break my heart because it's the story that I've lived my whole life of you cannot be what you cannot see. So I made it my mission to help everyone, especially women and people of color, realize and come alive in our unique gifts and audacious vision, because you don't know who's watching and you don't know how you being activated into the world will help others activate into their place in the world as well and make this world a better place, which we need.
We can just stop the podcast right here. That was just gold. That was just gold. I so feel and hear you in your story. I have very similar experiences growing up as an Indian American here in Orange County, and love so much that you're doing this. And that is why, like, the concept of competition doesn't exist. Like, you need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. We need to be doing this work and helping other people share their stories, because you're right. You have no idea who's listening, getting inspired and shifting their way out of that space of how things have always been done, how things have always been seen, and into a new way where they are the princess and anybody can be a princess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. And so is that really why you niche down into specializing in brand story versus other marketing, techniques like, all this stuff, Google Analytics? Is that why you really niched into brand story?
Oh, that's a great question, Tanya. And it's so timely because yesterday, even I was crying to my husband because you and I have been in this industry long enough where we see technology change, and it's changing faster now than we ever have experienced. I just saw a stat that TikTok is now the #1 website that's visited over Google for the first time in 15 years. And so we're seeing technology and marketing rapidly changing from where, content is king and everyone make blogs so that your SEO optimization is, you're like ranking on Google. And now it's make sure that you're making 15-second reels and hey, show a dance move or two so that you go viral. Marketing is always changing. And to be honest, I feel like, am I aging out of my own industry? And as I was crying to my husband about how we're losing this true human connection that helps us get to know one another in the breadth that, for instance, this podcast is doing. So thank you for this, Tanya. My husband said, it doesn't matter how fast this world goes or changes. Story will always connect us to one another. And I truly believe, Tanya, like I have said, that if there's anything in the world that I will stake my life on, it's connection. It's human connection. Connection and creativity are what is going to save us in the end as we become more depersonalized in media and technology. And so I believe, Tanya, that there is nothing more human than bearing witness to one another's stories, providing a space where we can share in empathy and share our experiences, because that is how we see one another. And so, yes, it is a marketing strategy because storytelling is 22 times more memorable than any other device. It's how our brains are wired. But humanistically, it's how we pass the divide of me versus you, Black versus white, and say, I see you. You're human just like me.
It's dropping the stats, 22 times more effective. I'm gonna use that.
Do it. Psychologist Jerome Bruner found that.
Okay. Amazing. And I believe it. I feel so affirmed and seen by everything you said, which is why you and I are co-conspirators. Because, often I'm with other marketers and the conversation is, like you said, about KPIs and cost per lead and all of these things. And I'm just like, well, what happened to you? Tell me your story. What happened to you? What did you grow through? And so you're right. I agree with you so much. It's that human element that we all crave that builds trust in a way that really nothing else can, right?
Completely.
Stories, yeah. They're generative. And so speaking of stories, while all stories are powerful, leaning on this campfire circle metaphor, sometimes they're scary stories too. Sometimes they're scary stories. And some of them can actually cripple us or stop us, but then some are helpful and transformative. And so either way you want to answer this question, what messages did you get growing up as a Filipina woman about standing out, about having a big voice, about showing up and getting visible?
Oh, these questions, Anya, you just like strike to the gut. This is why this podcast is number one. Subscribe, like it, all the things.
Love you.
Share it with your friends. Oh, this is such a great question. And again, so timely. I was on a call today with Bozoma St. John. She is the CMO at Netflix. She's like my patron saint because she's an African woman who's here in the States making a big difference where she is simply by showing up herself. And she shared these stories of how she was told to be less. She was told to not wear bold lipstick, to not wear bold colors. And she was like, are you kidding me? I'm fly. I'm not going to, dampen this down for anyone. And that's the story that I wish I had heard growing up, honestly, because the stories that I was told growing up as a Filipina American, and again, these were not overt. It was no one telling me, be less than who you are. It was just the fear of your parents came here from another country, trying to learn a new language and make enough money to provide a way forward for you and your sister. So in order to survive, you better fit in so you don't stand out and cause trouble. And so I think of, is it Representative John Lewis who says, cause good trouble? When we are told that we cannot use our voice or our very own being to stand for what we believe in, then we just become a cog in the machine. And I believe that's why I was falling into this depression, is because I wasn't living out my gifts or my vision for the world of creating a more exciting and equitable world for everyone. And so those stories that I received, Tanya, of just fitting in so that I don't cause trouble or that I can just merely survive in life, those are the stories I was told. But again, my company is called Come Alive Co. because I don't believe we're here to just merely survive, but to come alive and create a life and work worth living and talking about.
Okay, so you've heard from us. Now I want to hear from you. Leaving a review helps us so much in growing our reach and supporting more folks with this podcast. And even better, I would love for you to send me a note on LinkedIn with your takeaways from this episode. I cherish and respond to every message, so I can't wait to hear from you. And if you want to go even deeper, check out the show notes to take your next step.